Hey, son,
Hello.
everybody's talking about Lewis at Ferrari in the iconic red suit and his yellow helmet. That was one of the more memorable images, I think, of this offseason. A lot of news, a lot of rumors, a lot of expectations. But I think we need to look back to our annual F1 FE Awards show. All right, you ready to go, son?
I'm ready to go.
Hello, welcome to Hard Compound, an American take on Formula One. No race this week, no race for 2 more months. But we have high expectations. 2025 F1. Max going to go for his 5th championship in a row. Lando hoping to get his first. Charles the same. We'll see. And we've got Ferrari, McLaren thinking they're going to win the constructors. Mercedes saying, no, we think we got it. Red Bull saying, no, we think we can't. It's going to be a good year. But we need to look back. 2024. What a year that was. 7 different winners. First time for Lando. Hard to believe. And his teammate, Oscar Piastri, they pull out the Constructors' Championship final race just by 14 points over Ferrari. Good stuff. And a lot of big news during the season as well. All right. F1 Awards 2024. Let's start off big, Patrick. Favorite moments of the 2024 season. What do you got?
Favorite moments. This season provided quite a few good ones. So it's hard to narrow it down, I think. But for me, one of the most iconic scenes in F1 is a Ferrari home win. We got that in Monza. Leclerc won. Just awesome scenes. I love how just sort of patriotic the Italians are and yelling their national anthem as it's played with Ferrari there on the top step of the podium. So that is definitely one for me. To similar effect, you get Leclerc winning his home race in Monaco after so many close ones. It was pretty cool to see that. And then I have another couple. One, just the entire Vegas race kind of backed up what they did last year. I think just proving that it is here to stay. It's the biggest race on the F1 calendar, and everyone should take note of that. And lastly, one of my favorite moments of the season, non-race moment, GM Cadillac was permitted to join Formula One Motorsport as an 11th constructor. So that was pretty cool.
That's a good one. I may need to slip in a favorite moments award, non-race edition.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, for me, even more than Monza was Charles at Ferrari winning in Monaco. I mean, that race, that just meant everything to him. And he's in a car. I mean, he has to go against Max every race. He always hasn't had the best car, best team. They've been close, but never the best. But, there was a couple years ago, I didn't think Lewis Hamilton would ever win another race, and he won again at Silverstone. That was pretty good. Seeing Lando get his first win, that was a good one. I mean, even, the 2 Alpine drivers at odds and the team imploding, they got on, they got on the podium. Was that Brazil? I don't even remember.
It was Brazil. Yeah.
Those were all good. Vegas is a good race. For me, I'm going to say favorite moment of the year. I'll choose this one, Patrick. Charles Leclerc at Monaco, not Monza.
Nice.
Any nasty, bad favorite moments? I mean, the guilty pleasures almost. Like I was thinking Lando giving up the win to his teammate Oscar in Hungary, the Lando and Max battles. There was Mexico, there was Austria. A favorite moment, mostly because of its ridiculousness, was Sainz and Perez just crashing together. I think that was Baku. It was like, what are they doing? What's going on here? It was just so unnecessary,
Yeah. I think to that end, maybe your favorite good moment was Leclerc in Monaco. Maybe my favorite bad moment was Ocon and Gasly in Monaco, which basically resulted in Ocon being fired from Alpine. So I like that, though. I like when teammates just,
Oh, yeah.
they don't give a shit. They hate each other. They hate their team. They hate everything. That is the pinnacle of F1. I love it. I want to see more of it. I need teammates to be just ruthless, or not, doesn't even have to be teammates. I just want people to be ruthless. I liked some of the Lando Max battles, but they were a bit too one-sided. Max is ruthless and Lando just sort of gave up.
Yeah.
I needed to be just, I have one mind and it's passing you, it's winning, it's keeping you behind me, whatever. And the Ocon Gasly incident in Monaco was exactly that. And I loved it.
I mean, what a dick Ocon must be, though. I mean, here is this dude. He's a French driver, experienced, solid, on the French team. The French team is imploding, so they got everything else to worry about. And like, man, you're out. We just cannot take you anymore. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look out, young Ollie Behrman. He's going to have his hands full, I think, next season.
Right. All right, so we won't hand out an award for that. How about, there's a big one, Best Driver of the Year. I'm going to give you my nominees. Max, I mean, he won his fourth in a row. It's hard to argue. Charles is just, who's the guy pushing the rock up the mountain in perpetuity? Is that Sisyphus? I mean, you think, oh, Charles Leclerc, handsome young man, born and raised in Monaco, drives in F1, races for Ferrari. That's all good. And yet somehow it's this Sisyphean tale. So Lando, I think, just deals with a lot of issues, personal doubts. He had the best car for most of the year and came close. He got his first couple wins. And then my dark horse would be Hulkenberg in that Haas. I mean, week in, week out, he was kicking ass. All right, I'm going to let you give yours and then choose Best Driver of the Year.
That's good. I have a lot of the same nominees. Obviously, Max won the driver's title again. This year was a bit more tumultuous at Red Bull, and he didn't quite have the support of his teammate like he has in the past, and they just did not have overall the most dominant car for most of the season. So quite impressive from him to win it as he did, and by a margin that, I mean, he won in Vegas. I think there were several races left at that point. So yeah, pretty impressive.
It was not mathematically decided till late in the season, but he kind of had it.
Then, yep, I like Leclerc up there as well. I think he could have phoned it in, given, his teammate was leaving at the end of the season. He really didn't have too much to push for, but, he has seemed in the past to sort of crumble a little bit under pressure. And this year, won at Monaco with a lot of pressure on him, won at Monza. I mean, he really took that car to the limit. He had a really great season overall. Lando, I mean, he's a great driver. I think there's just one element missing from his toolbox that I think can take him over the top. But he also obviously had a great season and really helped bring McLaren to that Constructors' Championship. And then you have Hulkenberg. I like that nominee. I'm going to nominate Fernando Alonso. Aside from the top, 8 drivers in those top 4 teams, the next guy was Fernando Alonso. And he, by a mile, over anybody else. And if you look at his teammate, Lance Stroll, he was middling down there. Fewer points than Yuki Tsunoda. About the same as like Kevin Magnussen and guys like that. Fernando Alonso way outperformed that car. I think he outperformed guys like Gasly, Ocon, even Hulkenberg to some extent. I think he kind of had an under the radar season from his perspective anyways, but I thought he was really, really good. So those would be my 4 nominees.
Why don't you make the choice? Who gets the award? Best driver of the year.
Best driver of the year, I think it's hard to say. I think all of them have something to go for, but for me, I'm taking Max once again. I think there were a few weeks where he wasn't as consistently good as he has been in the past, but he was so dominant to start the year. And as soon as he saw that McLaren and Lando had a little bit of hope there, he kind of tightened his grip and really showed how good he is. And I think near the end of the season, that Brazil race really proved, he is in control. He's the best driver on the grid, and he was going to win the Drivers' Championship.
I wanted to give it to Charles. I wanted to give it to Hülkenberg. I wanted to even to give it to Alonso, but I think we have to give it to Max. I mean, I just think he was the best driver this year. I think the only knock on Max this year was, 2023 was better. But it's sort of like 2023 in that car, and he was just locked in. I mean, he had a winning percentage that, even you go back to the very earliest days of F1, it's still not matched and likely never will be. So I believe it was over 80%. So he won 19 with 22 races. Whatever that math is, but I think we have to. How about best team?
Oh, best team.
Who gets the award for best team in 2024?
All right. Well, my nominees are maybe a bit straightforward. They're just the top 4 teams. I've got McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes. I think they proved once again that they're sort of the premier group of teams in Formula One. They put out the best cars. They have the best driver pairings. They are managed well. They have great engineers, great pit crews, rarely make mistakes. I think McLaren had several pit stops under like 2 seconds this season. Right. That's just incredible how good those technicians are and how much they obviously train for these kinds of things. And I think all of that came together for McLaren. So for me, that would be my, top nominee is McLaren. But, I think those 4 teams, again, kind of proved their worth in F1.
McLaren really, I think, surprised us the first month or so, less so. But then as the season went on, the improvements in the car, really, they were setting the standard from Miami onward, essentially. So if I had to choose best team, who gets the award 2024, I'd have to go with McLaren. I think overall, like you said, they have a great team, young team, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. The car was good. The team was working, firing on all cylinders. They're really focused, and they're doing it as they get their engine from Mercedes. So it's pretty impressive. My nominees probably would have been similar to yours, Ferrari, Red Bull. I think I would have, this is biased, but I would have removed Mercedes and put in Haas though they really weren't the best. They were just most improved, I think. It was pretty impressive what they did. But I think I'm going to give the award to McLaren. What about best race? Now, for me, as much as I loved seeing Charles win at Monaco, as amazing as it was to see Lewis win again at Silverstone, I'm nominating, and I just think this is going to be tough to beat. You got to make the case. Was Brazil. Watching those drivers in those conditions, seeing what they were doing you see some of these camera angles, you're like, how did they even see? And they are taking these F1 cars on that track, pouring rain. I just thought it was amazing. So that's why this Vegas was fun. Miami, Lando Norris, these were all good. But for me, I'm going to let you make the case, but I'm going to go with Brazil.
Yeah, that is a good one, especially late in the season. I don't know if I can make the case, but I'll give a couple other nominees. One is Austria. That was where I think we kind of got a first glimpse that Max, he wasn't going to let Lando just go ahead and beat him and run up the score and get all these points. So we saw kind of a first clash there between those two. And we sort of found out in that race that we had a title fight this season, which was exciting. That was also the first race that Mercedes won. And then they would go on to win back-to-back races, Austria and then at Silverstone. So we got, a podium that was Russell, Piastri, Sainz. Piastri, had a bid for his first win at Austria there. So that was a fun race. Then I'll go ahead and I think almost similar to Brazil was Canada. We had kind of crazy changing conditions in Canada. I think that's a great track. A lot of battles and some crazy decisions. You saw guys trying to go out on slicks in conditions that were just not ready for slicks. We had some clashes between Albon and Perez, I think. I want to say it was Alpine's first points of the season. There were some good storylines there. Ricardo getting up into the top 10. And then lastly, I'll throw in Miami as a nominee. This was a fun race. Lando won it from 5th on the grid and, was able to hold off Max for most of the race. He just was locked in, and we saw I want to say this was sort of the start of a new season, like you were mentioning. The first 5-6 races, whatever it was just Red Bull dominant, Max dominant. And then in Miami, something changed. McLaren brought in some upgrades. We saw him work. Norris got his first taste of victory and wanted to back it up. And we saw a really great rest of the season after that. But I think Brazil, like you said, might have to win best race of the season. I mean, we got just a crazy race, crazy conditions. Max winning it from way, way back on the grid. The Alpine drivers, both of them getting podiums and, sort of vaulting them into the top of that mid pack. I mean, from out of nowhere. I mean, they were dead. Alpine was gone. They were going to be sold, and then this race happened and all of a sudden their fortunes changed. So,
yeah. And, it's funny because, so I'm going to choose best race of the year, Brazil. And I typically don't like the races in the rain. I want cars to go fast, as fast as possible. But this one just happened to be one where I just think we really just saw the amazing skill of the driver, of the cars, of the teams, which is why I almost regret this next award. It's sort of like here in the US, the Grammy Awards, like, oh, album of the year, song of the year, record of the year. You're like, well, you win one, you're going to win all of those almost. It's kind of a tough, but, so I created the category best performance of the year. And for me, I was like, well, it has to be Max in Brazil. I'm not even nominating anybody else or anything else. Do you have anything? I mean, I don't want to be a Max sycophant, but I was like, look, we saw in Brazil, we didn't see anybody else do anything close.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 nominations.
Oh, good.
I've got Lando in Miami, like I was just talking about. Came back from 5th on the grid, held off, challenges from Max, from Sergio, the Mercedes drivers. I mean, I think Carlos was up there too. So it was a really good drive. And I mean, the pressure was on. He's been chasing this for a long time. He's had a few opportunities and fumbled them. And I think, he held his nerve and took it home. So that was a great drive from him.
Real quick, memory serves, McLaren was talking up that race. I mean, before they were like, we're bringing upgrades. We think we can win. From the start, you didn't think so, but yeah.
Qualifying did not go their way. They did not look so good in qualifying, but Lando found a way to get up front and really never look back from there. Then my other nominee is a dominant performance by Charles Leclerc in Monaco.
Yeah.
I think, again, similarly, pressure was on. I mean, this was the biggest race of his career, basically, at this point. And he just dominated from the start. I mean, had an incredible qualifying performance. inches away from the wall at every turn, and he did not put a single step wrong. It was quite the impressive performance.
That is a good one. For me, I just got lost so much in just being happy for him. They won. It was Leclerc. It was at Monaco. It was Ferrari. He got that curse. He rid himself of that curse. That is a good one. I was fixated on Max in Brazil. Why did you choose the winner?
Best performance. Overall performance, I think the Max performance is incredible in Brazil. I mean, coming through the pack like that is pretty exceptional. Personally, I'm going to give it to Leclerc in Monaco.
Nice.
I just think that is a hard track to be as fast as he was on it and just never put a foot wrong. I mean, it was pretty exceptional, his performance there, and to win at home under that kind of pressure is pretty impressive.
Switching to the soft compound. Saddest goodbyes. There were a number of goodbyes come the end of the F1 2024 season, Patrick. Daniel Ricciardo, Sauber, Sergio Perez, Carlos leaving Ferrari, Lewis leaving Mercedes. That iconic partnership, Lewis at Mercedes, is like, it's like Schumacher Ferrari. You don't want to break that up, I mean, who's the Yoko in that scenario?
Fred Vasseur.
Fred Vasseur, the Yoko. That's awesome. Logan, the writing was on the wall for that one. Let's be honest. Logan Sargent. Okay, well, so those are the nominees. Saddest goodbyes. Who's winning this one, Patrick? I don't know if that's a win.
Exactly none of them. Sad? I don't know. Are any of them sad?
I'm sad to see Ricciardo go, but his time was past.
Yeah, I think that one was sure. We'll say Ricciardo is the saddest goodbye. He was, one of the guys on the grid that sort of provided a little bit of fun and spark and attitude. And I think it will be, for me, it just feels like that goodbye happened a few years ago,
Yeah.
Like this wasn't really the goodbye. It was just sort of like, oh, I guess he was still around.
Right. Yeah. It was like the Eagles' Hell Freezes Over tour. It's like, you came back after you said you weren't, but okay. Oh, that's fun. That was fun. Nice to see you. All right. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I mean, but dang, I'm sad almost that, like, even under saddest goodbye, I don't care about Sauber. I mean, at least Williams has some glorious history. Williams has been garbage for a decade, it seems, or longer, but they have some history. Sauber has just always kind of been the brand X, the no-name brand, and they'll get a sponsor and they're in there, they're hanging in there, but they never do anything,
Yeah.
And now Audi came and buys them, which I think is good, but it's just sort of like, man, you were here for so long and still nobody cared, You were an F1 team and nobody cared. I mean, I'm almost sad that I'm not sad. Anyway, related topic. The biggest news item in F1 in 2024. I mean, this one's going to be tough to beat. Lewis leaving Mercedes. I mean, like you said, Fred Vasseur pulled a Yoko. In addition to that, Ferrari, here's $100 million. Lewis was like, oh no, I'm Mercedes for life. Me and Toto, we're ride or die. Fred Vasseur shows up with $100 million. He's like, fuck you, Toto. Funny. So, another big news story. It's not that Carlos Sainz is going to Williams. It's that Carlos Sainz had no other options but to go to Williams.
It doesn't seem weird, like getting off topic, but like after all is said and done, Red Bull goes, hey, Liam Lawson, yeah, come here. You're going to be in the second seat instead of just signing Carlos Sainz from the get-go. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
I know. I mean, like I said, I didn't say Carlos going to Williams was the big news. It's that was his only chance. I mean, I don't think anybody else was offering, which I just was surprised by that. So, I mean, he's a good driver. He's not great. I don't think he was, for example, Leclerc's level, but still a pretty good driver. Drove for Ferrari for years. McLaren. Wow. Any other nominees? I mean, there was a bunch of firings, a lot of job shifts, but now with this hard salary cap they've got there, we should expect at the end of the year, especially, just a lot of turnover, a lot of folks taking jobs elsewhere, getting cut. So I don't think that's news anymore now that the salary cap has sort of been embedded into the sport. To me, just the big weird was Lewis. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So I guess I have a couple more nominees. Some of them are, maybe less shocking or surprising than others. But one, I've got Adrian Newey decided to leave Red Bull, go to Aston. I think that is pretty big.
Yep.
And there was, lots of news stories about where would he go, what's he going to bring to the team, that kind of thing. Is Red Bull, is Christian Horner really going to let him go? All that kind of stuff. So that was pretty big news. We got the return of Australia, Melbourne, round 1, finally. So, that's kind of a nice news, I guess, that we're starting the season from now on in Australia. That's fun. It's sort of been iconic for a decade or more.
It does
And
seem
under
right.
COVID, it went away. So that's pretty good. And then last one, for me, the second biggest news to Lewis leaving Mercedes is the birth of an 11th team in Formula One.
Ooh, that's didn't happen in 2024, but we got the green light in 2024. So that is a big one.
Yeah, I think ultimately it was decided to proceed in 2024.
Yeah. Well, give me who wins this one.
I mean, I think the most sort of shocking news was Lewis. I mean, that really shook up everything. Right at the start of the season, it happened, or right before the start of the season, I guess. And, that almost created just a lot more news stories to happen.
Yeah.
The Sainz thing, that was all started because of Lewis going to Ferrari. So,
well, and whenever Lewis did poorly, we got all the great conspiracy theories. Oh, Mercedes is sabotaging him. Toto is sabotaging him. Yeah, that was a good one. All right, we're going to give the biggest news, off-track news, we'll say Lewis going to Ferrari, leaving Mercedes. Related, biggest beneficiary of the news in 2024. So, for example, I just made this one up. Max, is he the biggest beneficiary? Because he's going to try and go for his 5th in a row. Doesn't have to worry about Lewis at Mercedes. Ferrari's now got this kind of new inter-team dynamic, which that's going to take some time to work through. McLaren, they seem set, but I don't know. Lando and Oscar both think they should win. Maybe that's a good one. But speaking of Lando, he got to win 2024. Got that monkey off his back. He now knows he can win. Was the biggest beneficiary of the news Lewis? I mean, the dude's going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars more, Was George. He's now freed from having to be sort of the second at Mercedes all the time. I don't know. I just sort of made this award up, but this is a filler award here, Patrick.
Okay.
Biggest beneficiary.
Here's my final nominee. If Adrian Newey is some sort of aerodynamics god, as they say, is the biggest beneficiary Fernando Alonso? Does he win a 3rd championship at Aston?
Wow. I mean, talk about Sisyphus.
Does Mercedes provide a good enough power unit? Is Honda joining this year? I don't remember, but
I mean, earlier I was talking about Charles Leclerc. He's like a handsome young guy, born and raised in Monaco, drives an F1 for Ferrari, and yet it just seems like he's just, constantly pushing that rock up the mountain. Imagine being Fernando Alonso. Fernando, you've been in F1 for over 20 years. We're finally going to give you the fastest car on the track. Oh, but you're 50.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of cruel joke is that, He finally gets the best car, and he'll be like 50. He's like, "Oh, shit," and he comes in second probably. That would just be oh, that's a tough one. I'm not even sure I'm gonna give an award. We're not gonna give an award for this one. Oh, here's another one. Here's a related. I'm getting a lot of new awards on the fly. Based on all the news and off-track events, who was the biggest loser last year? So, for example, is it Charles? I mean, he's beloved at Ferrari. He's the main guy there now. All of a sudden, Lewis Hamilton shows up. Is it Carlos Sainz being banished to Williams? Is it Yuki banished to purgatory? I mean, poor Yuki. It's like, hey, man, what do I got to do? I was driving for the Red Bull B team, and I keep doing everything asked of me. And everybody you put here on the B team, I keep beating them. And, but I'm still stuck here. And shit ass Visa Cash App Racing Bulls bullshit team. So who's the biggest loser? I'm gonna let you just nominate and choose.
I'm going to go with Ollie Behrman. He now has to share a Haas team with motherfucking Esteban Ocon because Ocon was such a big ass dick at Alpine that they forced him out, and Haas went, maybe he's better than Magnussen. So they signed him. I don't know. I'm going to go with Ollie Behrman. He raced for Ferrari for a race. He raced for Haas a few races. Did quite well in both situations. And, I think he had some good teammates to learn from and to kind of work with. And now he's going to be in a situation where he's going to have to fend for himself, I think. So that is maybe Ollie Behrman is the biggest loser. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he'll be like a literal teenager still, I think, in 25, right? I mean, a teenager driving an F1? I don't know. Some of these, though, clearly deals with the devil. And so you might be onto something. Hey, I'll make you an F1 driver. You're only 19, but you're going to be at Haas. You're going to partner with Ocon. And look, nothing is going to work out. You're going to regret everything. Maybe that's it. Biggest disappointment? Like, for example, who do you have as the most disappointing driver in 2024? Patrick, let's start there.
Most disappointing driver? I don't know. I probably got to give it to Sergio Perez. I think there were a few nominees, maybe. Ricardo was there at VCAR, Yuki's teammate, and really just didn't show enough and got the boot during the season. I mean, that is pretty disappointing. But to have your teammate win the Drivers' Championship by a fair margin, to have 7 drivers win a race, multiple races. I think all of them won multiple races. And those are 7 drivers in the top 4 teams. You are the 8th driver in the top 4 teams, and you did not win a single race. You got about half as many points as the 5th place guy. That is quite a disappointing season. And then, to top it off, signed to like a 2-year deal, and then turns out they're going to fire you actually after that season. So that's
right.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I should have said, all right, we're not even going to count Logan Sargent. Okay.
Well, yeah.
All right. But I mean, Ricardo they brought him back as like, listen, we all like you. The fans like you. We're going to give you a shot. And he didn't have it. I mean, I know a lot of people were upset with Red Bull for how they unceremoniously dumped him, but they gave him a long leash. I mean, they gave him an opportunity when maybe they shouldn't have. There were a few others, though, for me. I mean, Bottas just looked like he wasn't trying. His old partner, Lewis, there were a couple races. I'm like, is Lewis's head just, he's like, nah, car doesn't have it. I think I'm going to call it a day. I'm like, you can't call it a day, buddy. Perez, I think Perez is the obvious choice. The only caveat I say, though, in his defense is what I think we're going to find out. I always say Max Verstappen is like the Michael Jordan of F1. He's just so much better and so much more focused and competitive that he's just always going to be number one. Because Perez is a fine driver, but he just looked lost. And I just think that car was just such a beast to handle. I mean, I was saying early on, this is the 4th best car. And it could have been worse, but just after the first 4 teams, the other cars were just all garbage. So, I mean, in Sergio's defense, I think that car was just so much more difficult to handle. But I'm going to choose, I still think you're right, most disappointing driver, Daniel Ricciardo. Any crazy predictions, Patrick, for the upcoming season?
Any crazy predictions? I don't know if I have any crazy predictions. I think
I've got a good one.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I'll start. This will be 20 plus years with Christian Horner leading the Red Bull team. That is a long time. That's a hard life. I mean, it's a wonderful life, but that's also a hard life. The owner of Red Bull has passed. There's all kinds of weird new corporate HR rules going on. They may not be as committed to F1. They see it just purely, I think, for the branding and money, not to win the way Horner wants to. There's new rules, new engines coming up, spending cap regulations. You know, the corporatization of F1, I think, will ultimately give us more competitive drives and a more professionalized sport. But for those in it, it may be less fun. And so I think after 20 years, in 2025, Christian Horner is going to say he is stepping down. He's leaving Red Bull.
That's a good one. I don't think I have anything that can beat that. So,
well, we're looking forward. You mentioned Melbourne, March 16th. It's a couple months away. Maybe we'll have our news and rumors episode. We'll have a predictions based on flimsy evidence episode. So it's all good. All right. I want to thank you all for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. It is much appreciated, and we are lights out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
You just finished listening to Hard Compound, recorded in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and around the world.